question is, are you ready?
What do you guys want to talk about?
Let me talk to you. Yeah.
Throwdown Nation, we are live. It is a Tuesday night. We are rolling on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitter/X, on Facebook, and on Twitch. It is episode 149 of the Throwdown, and today we are throwing down with a fellow Georgia boy based out of Southeast Georgia, pro wrestler, war-driven, Johnny Faith. How you doing tonight, sir?
Good to see you, Matt. Thanks for having me on, and I'm ready to get this started and tell some stories and talk some wrestling.
Absolutely, man. I have been looking forward to this one. And for those of you that are watching this live, if you have any questions or comments, just throw them in the chat, and we'll either handle them as we go or do a little Q&A at the end. And I'm seeing actually our buddy Chris Page is already in the chat room on Instagram along with the Wildside Wrestling Podcast.
Wow! All right.
So we've already got some folks showing up and representing. So we'll go ahead and start with the first and the most obvious question, due to the nature of this podcast, and that is, how long have you been wrestling, Johnny?
I have been wrestling just over 6 years. I started training in the summer of 2018, June. Can't talk right now. So June of 2018, I started training. I made my official pro wrestling debut in April of 2019. So about 6 years and 3 or 4 months or so.
Yeah, 6 years and change.
Yeah.
So who actually trained you?
So I was originally trained by a man by the name of Billy Simmons. He owns a training facility out in Kansas called the Bears Den. And we trained for about 8 months together, and he still has his training facility out there just north of Wichita, Kansas to this day. It's called the Bears Den. Great place to train. If you're in the area, definitely go check him out, because Billy Simmons is a brain you want to help you get to that level in professional wrestling.
Absolutely. So in terms of the early portions of your training, what was the most difficult aspect of professional wrestling for you to wrap your mind and body around?
They say slow down. Veterans in the business will tell you to slow down, and that's what I had a hard time grasping at the very beginning, because coming out of the military, I was trained to fight. I was trained to disarm, disable, kill, whatever you want to call it. And in the wrestling ring, it's a lot different. You kind of gotta go slow. You can't just, dive in head first. You can't jump the gun, things like that. You got to take things at a slow pace sometimes. And, for me, and Billy will even probably tell you, that was one of the hardest things to grasp when I started wrestling, and, trying to make it seem like I was, working instead of shooting at the same time as well, because like I said, my wrestling mentality would take over at times, and that would help keep me back on a few things when it came to my wrestling training in those early days anyways.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you're very aware of this with your background and such, but there's a saying in the military special operations community: slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Yeah, there
And
definitely is.
that applies to so many areas of life. But you're not the first person that I've had on one of these to talk about how difficult slowing down is. And a lot of the veterans will tell the young guys, if you think you're going slow, slow down. you know
Yeah, and I get it. I probably get it every match still. Go a little slower, go a little slower. Like I'm it's something I'm always working on. 6 years later, trying to find that right balance, that right pace, and in those early years, it was go go go. Like I was, I was probably getting too ahead of myself, probably too hype, too excited. Whatever it may be, but slow is smooth, smooth is fast is definitely, something not just in the military, but it definitely carries over into wrestling too.
Absolutely. And I'm noticing, over in the Instagram chat, Bruce Cross, who is he is a top performer down in All Caribbean Wrestling, and he is actually a previous guest on the Throwdown. He's hanging out in the chat, along with my friend Dominic DeJesus, who is he's out in Los Angeles, but actually comes over to our side of the country to do some wrestling here and there.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah. So going into professional wrestling, did you have an athletic background prior to wrestling? Did you play sports in high school or college or anything like that? Or
I never played really any sports like that. I mean, besides like little league and all that, but like high school, no, nothing like that. I was just military trained when I entered the world of professional wrestling. I really didn't have any sports background. I mean, obviously in the military, you have to be physically fit, especially in the Army. But, as far as like a sports background, not so much. Army combatives, I had a background in that. I was level 2 Army combatives, going for my level 3 before I got out. So I do have some hand-to-hand combatives training, as well, MMA training as well, from the Army. So, that carried over.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's been a number of years since I did this, but several years ago, for a number of years, I trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which I know is a big part of the Army Combatives program.
Yeah.
And man, I loved that, and I still maintain to this day there is no better full body workout than rolling rounds of jiu-jitsu with people. I mean, that's yeah, that was definitely good stuff. So you were mentioning your service in the military. Tell us a bit about that. I know you were in the Army.
Does it?
What parts of the world did it take you to, and what was your specialty in the Army?
So I was a 12 Bravo in the Army, which is a combat engineer. So basically, before the global war on terrorism kicked off, basically our job was like fortifications, either construction or deconstruction. But once the global war on terrorism kicked off, our job shifted to what they call route clearance, and that pretty much is you and a convoy drive down this route before anybody else, and you find all the IEDs and bombs and explosive devices that people have laid out there for you, to disarm our troops. And we would go out there, we destroy them, whether we found them, whether we got blown up ourselves or whether we blew them in place and found them, the good way. But it took me everywhere. It took me Afghanistan. I went to South Korea. I've been, United States, all over the United States, pretty much. I've done a bunch of training throughout the United States on demolitions. I did an Urban Master Breacher course, which it teaches you how to breach through all kinds of stuff, steel, wood, etc. So basically my expertise is demolitions. When I was in the Army, I tried to train as much as I could and go to as many schools as I could, while I was in. And Even today, I still try to keep up with some of that stuff, to see what's going on in the world with things like that.
Nice, nice. Well, yeah, as I was telling you, my dad and my father-in-law are both retired Air Force, and they had definitely have some interesting stories, themselves. They were both in Vietnam, and yeah, it's I was not in the military myself, but I worked a number of years as a paramedic, so I was in sort of a paramilitary type of environment, doing that. Not the same thing, obviously, but it was a different way of serving. So
Yeah, you were first responder, which is still just as needed as the military. Like, I mean, I can't ever appreciate our first responders enough. As much as our military, our first responders deserves the spotlight as well.
absolutely. So it's really a perfect segue from that to this next topic, and that is, based on your socials and just some things I've read, I know that you are a heart attack survivor. So tell us that story. How did it come about? Was it something you were aware of? I mean, were you aware that you were having a heart attack at the time you were, or was it something you found out about later? What's the story?
So it was March 6th of last year, 2024. I was helping put together my daughter's bunk beds in her room. We had just got her a whole new bunk bed set. She was excited, and we were excited to put it together for her. And I went outside to throw some garbage away in my trash can, and I just felt this sharp pain in my chest, and it kind of radiated to my left side a little bit. But I didn't really think nothing of it because I have GERD. And if you know anything about GERD, the acid reflux makes it seem like you're having a heart attack.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of the same symptoms. So what I did was I went inside and I took some medicine, some omeprazole or something, just to see if that was it. Pain still would not go away. So went to the doctor, wound up going to the ER. They ran some tests. They said that I had a cardiac event, but they did not know how severe it was. So they had to ambulance me up to Brunswick, Georgia, and they had to run me into the cath lab, and do the cath lab and see exactly what had happened. And it turned out I had a heart attack. I had 90, I think 96, I want to say it's 96% blockage in one of my veins or arteries. And then the other one was about 53 or 54% blocked.
Wow.
So they recommended that I had a single bypass to bypass the blockage in the one that was 92%. And I wound up having single bypass surgery about 3 days later after the heart attack, and started recovery right after that. Pretty much got out of the hospital 3 days later, and then started on an 8-week pretty much recovery at home, doing nothing.
Yeah. So, you had mentioned that that I guess post heart attack, the doctors have looked, and it's almost like nothing actually happened. It's like your body basically was able to either absorb or reverse the damage, or
They were miraculously surprised as well as I was when they came in and told me that there was no damage to my heart. After the surgery, they really couldn't determine that. But once I went back 4 weeks after my heart attack for another echo and EKG, and to check to make sure that my sternum bone was healing correctly. And during that round of initial testing, it was like almost like my heart was, they couldn't even tell that there was a heart attack there. If they could not directly see the bypass in my heart based off of what the data that the EKG and the echo had shown, my heart was functioning normally like a regular heart, like with no damage whatsoever. And then I went back 4 weeks after that to make sure the sternum bone was completely healed, which it was, took another echo, another EKG, and those tests were the same result. No damage. They couldn't even tell. My doctor, Dr. Powell, was like, this is something I've never really seen before in my years. Like I expect to see a little bit of scar tissue, a little bit of damage somewhere in there, but all these testings that you have done over these last 4 or 5 weeks, especially in cardiac rehab, has shown me that there is really no damage whatsoever to your heart. So it was on his opinion at that time that I was released for full activities, not diving straight up head first back in, but he said there was no way that he would not keep me away from wrestling. That it was his determination and his expertise that I could continue to wrestle with no limitations.
That's awesome, man. And like I was saying before we went on the air, man, that is a God thing. I mean,
yeah, like and my wife's in the medical field as well, and she's just like, there's at least always something, a numbers off here or there, something in your results, but nothing. It was all normal across the board.
Man, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, away from wrestling and everything else, what are some of your other hobbies and interests?
So I like music. I like going to concerts and stuff. All kinds of concerts, really. I'm really a concert. I like spending time with my family's been a huge thing for me the last few years or so since my dad passed. I've done I like doing family activities now. It's now we make wrestling a family trip. It's not just dad goes to wrestling on the weekends or anything like that. No, if it's close enough and we can make it work, my whole family travels now, with me. And, we try to experience that as a family together. And, this past summer has been nothing but family trips and places we've gone, and I've taken them to wrestling shows with me and all that. But, right now for me, it's just family time. That's the way to it for me right now.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you're kind of a big music guy. We're mostly a wrestling related show, but we do dabble a little bit into pop culture, and I'm always looking for recommendations. Are you listening to anything cool right now?
Actually, I honestly, I've been listening to the same old playlist for years and years and years.
Nothing wrong
I really
with
don't. I really haven't really dabbed into like the new like if I turned on the radio right now, I wouldn't recognize anybody on there, honestly.
Same here.
And it's it's not just it's just how I am. I got the same like 10 playlists that I recycle through. It just depends on the mood of the day, and what I'm doing and all that. But yeah, as far as like to pay attention to what pop culture is right now in society, I couldn't tell you. You, Matt.
Gotcha. So, outside of wrestling, what person inspires you the most and why?
My dad. My dad inspires me the most. He's no longer with us. He was diagnosed with cancer and, fought for a few years, long, hard battle, and eventually lost his battle. But, he taught me never to quit no matter what. Like I saw that man work until the day he died. And, and I have never seen a more stronger or more, I don't know how to put it, but I don't know a more stronger person than my father, because he persevered through that cancer for 2.5, 3 years and still worked. He still did his HVAC business, while doing chemotherapy and all that. Like he never missed a beat unless if it got too bad. And eventually that cancer got him, and his fight taught me to always fight. And I think that's what helped me through that heart attack recovery as well, because I saw what he went through with the chemotherapy and the cancer and all the surgeries, and I thought to myself, if he could keep fighting, why can't I?
You? Yeah.
So that's that. Anytime somebody asks me who my number one influence is, it'll always be him, because like I said, he fought until the day he died. He really did.
Well, knowing what I know about you, Johnny, your dad's proud.
Thankfully, he got to watch me wrestle twice before he passed in person.
That's good.
thankfully. And both of those wrestling matches I will always, put at the top of my list because those were the two matches that he got to watch. And the second match that he watched, he passed the next day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you got to give him a special final memory.
Oh yeah, and you can hear him in the match during the match. My wife recorded it. He's hooting and hollering, USA, USA, like all that, and you couldn't even tell he's a stage 4 cancer patient. You couldn't even tell.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So, I can tell that you are definitely an extremely family oriented guy. What does your family think about all of this? What do they think about about you pursuing your wrestling dreams and all of that? I get the impression they're extremely supportive. But what does the family think?
So I met my wife almost 5 years ago, and she had a son and a daughter. And they were, I think, 7 and 9 at the time when I met her, and we moved in together and started this life together. And they had no idea really what wrestling was besides the WWE on TV.
Mm-hmm.
They had never been to like an indie show or anything like that. So, when I told Karen, who's my wife, I was like, I'm a professional wrestler. I travel on the weekends, to wrestling shows and all that. She was like, pretty curious and interested. Okay. So we started going on the road together. When we first got together, I first moved down here to Southeast Georgia. I started expanding into Florida and wrestling in Florida a little bit. And we started going to shows together, and my kids really enjoy it. They enjoy my matches. My son, he's a special needs kid, great kid, but he's not really into wrestling, but when I'm there and I'm wrestling, he'll watch it, but then he kind of tunes it out. But here lately, he's actually fallen in love with it. And like, he's actually, some of these places that I go often, he's actually got some fun, like some favorite wrestlers that he likes to see. And my wife, she supports me 100%. I mean, we pretty much put our entire life on hold, in February, so I could move to Tennessee for 3 months to train with Dr. Tom Pritchard. So,
nice.
So she supports me 100% with this endeavor, like with wrestling. Like, she's all in, just like I am. As long as we can make it work and make a family affair out of it, I think it's all good.
Gotcha. So, what was the experience like training with Tom Pritchard?
It was an amazing experience, and honestly, it went by too quick. I was up there for 12 weeks. Had to move myself up there. I lived up there for 3 months, pretty much. Went to training every day for about 3 to 4 hours a day with Dr. Tom, and it helped me, get to that next level. I mean, it took what my original trainer Billy Simmons did for me, that foundation that he laid for me, and it just made me, it built it into a mansion. Like, going there with Dr. Tom, because Dr. Tom's a renowned trainer, world known, like one of the top trainers in the world of professional wrestling. And to get a chance to go to his school for more than a seminar or a super camp or a weekend or something like that, was really probably the best career move that I made for wrestling.
Yeah, I had a guest on a while back who he actually runs an indie promotion out in Utah. And he was able to take a few months toward the end of last year and actually go out to Davenport, Iowa, and train at the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy that Seth Rollins runs with Merrick Brave and Matt Mayday. And he said, the experience of getting to do that was just life changing. To basically sort of put everything on hold and just go and just be there day in and day out for about 3 months. He said, it definitely took things to a whole different level for him. So I can only imagine, getting that type of experience has got to just be worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. And, there were only 6 of us. 6 of us graduated. There were 7 of us originally, but I mean, that was a lot of one-on-one with Dr. Tom for 3 months. I mean, usually his classes are like 15, 20 people, but we were blessed with a 6-person class
Wow.
So it was so much training with Dr. Tom and so much feedback, one-on-ones, and all that. And like you said, it really elevated my career to the next level. I mean, it opened up my eyes a lot, into wrestling. It really did, because he gave us so much inside information, tips, advice about every aspect of the business, and not just wrestling. How to present yourself, how to carry yourself, how to present yourself in the locker room, and it wasn't just wrestling lessons he taught us. He taught us life lessons too.
Yep. And you know the instructors that want to make you both a good wrestler and a good human being are wonderful people. You know, here in Atlanta, we've got a wrestling school called WWA4, and it's basically run by AR Fox. And his goal is to produce great wrestlers, but more importantly, to produce great people. And and that needs to be the focus of any school.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's you always got to present yourself with the utmost, inside the ring and outside the ring. So, like, anybody that combines both life lessons and wrestling lessons into a wrestling training session at night, I will totally be there.
Absolutely. So, they say that the best wrestling persona is usually pretty much yourself turned up to 11. So tell us about in-ring Johnny and kind of compare and contrast him with everyday you.
So, like, everyday me is very quiet. I'm a very quiet person, and you could ask anybody I share a locker room with. I'm usually one of the quietest people in the locker room. I really am. I keep to myself. I'm a military guy, so usually when I get to the show, I try to find a spot nobody's utilizing, and I'll already set up my gear and stuff, dress right, getting ready to change out, all that. But as far as when that music hits, when my air raid sirens go off and I walk through that curtain, it's like 100% intensity. Like, I really, it's night and day between what you see in the locker room than what you see in front of the camera or on the other side of the curtain. Because until that switch flips, I guess I just, I'm just very calm. I'm a cool, collected person. Even though I got so much stuff going on the inside, I keep a lid on it. But once it's time to go,
It's go time.
it's go time. And you see me come through that curtain, and I'm on it. Like, everything from inside that I've carried with me since my last wrestling match, I let it all out.
That's awesome. So tell us about your very first match. What was it like? How did it go? What were your thoughts? Tell us about the very first one.
So my very first match was in April of 2019. It was
Okay.
for a company called XWE out in Kansas. It was at their WrestleMania show called Awakening. It's their version of WrestleMania. So it was my debut match. I'd been training 8 months prior, and I wrestled a man by the name of the 100 Proof Redneck Bubba Sutton. And he was a backwoods guy from the South, really bad guy, mean, country boy, just, hated Johnny Faith, like, just him and his faction powerbombed me through a table, actually, when I was doing my contract signing the month prior. So that's what set that match up. And we went at it for a good 10, 12 minutes. He cheated, kicked me in the biscuits and rolled me up for the 3. And all that. But I mean, I was so nervous. But once my music hit and once I got out there, all those nerves kind of just went away. And that's how it always is for me. I'm super nervous, but once my music hits and I know it's my turn, then
Mhm.
it just goes away. But looking back on that match, it was a pretty good match. I mean, it really was. I out wrestled him for a good bit of the match. The new kid coming in and showing the vet what's up, and then he took the low road and low blowed me and rolled me up for the 3. He sadly passed away a couple years ago in a car crash with his kid, and that match is going to be at the top as well. As long as with my dad's matches too. That match with Bubba, that first one. that will be a total number one, number two type match for me right now. And we had a feud for about 2 years after that. We feuded for a couple years. And we took it all the way through the pandemic. We carried that story all the way through the pandemic with vignettes and roadside beatdowns and all that. So,
yeah.
I mean, we carried it. And, that match will always be everyone knows their first match. Everyone remembers their first match, whether it was a good match or not. It's besides the point. The point is, it's your first match in front of people. All right. I spent 8 months preparing for this. And, even though the match was iffy, it was still, a good match in my book because it was my first match. And I finally, all the hard work paid off. Absolutely.
And you were talking about feeling nervous until your music hits and all that. Adrenaline's a hell of a drug, man. And, adrenaline will get you through a lot of nerves.
It will, and it's like that to this day. Still, every match that I go, I mean, I'm sure it's like that for everyone that wrestles, or just in general, because those nerves are what keep you on your toes.
Yeah,
and they keep you alert. They keep you. For me, they fuel my motivation to just,
Mm-hmm. And the day that you're not, at least on some level, a little nervous is the day you stop caring. and so nerves, as long as the nerves are controllable, it's a good thing. It shows you care.
So. Yeah, and for me it definitely is, because those nerves, they're not bad nerves, they're good nerves. But they're still nerves, and I still got the butterflies and all that. So, and it's something that I probably won't ever, get rid of. It's, it's just one of those things that'll help keep me on my toes and make me a better wrestler in the long run, I think.
Gotcha. So, you were mentioning the match that you wrestled in, that your dad got to see, right before he passed. Would you say that is your absolute favorite match that you have participated in, or are there other matches that have been special to you that you've been a part of, or is that pretty much top of the list?
So, like, it's hard to say. I got 3 matches. So it's the match with Bubba Sutton, my very first match with Bubba. And then my dad's match, the last match that he got to see me. But there's also a third match. It was a match with a guy named Drake Gallows. He's out of Oklahoma. It was for a company called XWE, once again out in Kansas. Okay. I was still, super greenhorn kid, and bam, I was thrown into the main event heavyweight title no DQ match. I'm like 3 months into my career, and Drake is like, hey, I want to face Johnny. I want to work with Johnny. So we did a 30-minute no DQ street fight match around the whole venue. And that is where I found that intensity, because up until that point, I was still trying to find my identity. I was still trying to find exactly who Johnny Faith was, like how I wanted to present myself to the fans. I knew what I wanted to do a little bit. I just really hadn't had those gears put in motion to help me create that until that match. Now, when I got to that match, that's where that intensity came out. That's where the fire came out, and I will always say that match is where Johnny Faith was born officially, was during that match, because I got my tail kicked, handcuffed, all kinds of stuff. I got my tail kicked and I kept coming, and I wanted more, so I just found that grit, that tenacity. I did not win, but I showed everyone that I could take a licking and keep on ticking.
That's awesome. So, this has actually been one of my favorite questions. I've asked this in every single one of these, and it's been about a 50-50 split. So I'm interested to see your answer to this, and that is, if you could only be one, would you rather be great in the ring or great on the mic?
I'm pretty good on the mic right now, so I'd probably have to say the ring. I'd probably have to say I'd be great in the ring. I mean, I feel like I could develop my sense of speech and how I want to project myself verbally if I was great in the ring and knew like what my moveset was and all that and what I was going to do every match. I think I could put all the pieces together behind the microphone if I was great in the ring. But see, I don't know. At the same time, if you're great on the mic, you can tell good stories. You can get people involved. You can just pull people in just by your voice. You know, you don't even have to step foot into the ring. So for me, I'd honestly have to go with the microphone. I'd like to be better on the microphone because if I can lure you in with just my voice, I know I can keep you with what I can do in the ring.
Right. And being great on the mic is also good for career longevity. Because, if something happens where physically you can't go in the ring anymore, if you're a good talker, there's still a place for you in the business. You could end up a manager, a commentator, So.
Yeah, and that's what people were telling me after my heart attack. They were like, if you can't go, have you considered being a manager or commentary? Because you're pretty good on the microphone. And I feel like, if you can't go in the ring, you could definitely do a manager role. You could do commentary. You might even be able to be a ring announcer. I mean, there's places out there for you, especially if you can talk on the microphone. But, the big thing is storytelling. Like, that's the big thing with me, and you can tell a story in the ring. You really can. But you can't keep that story going without the microphone.
Right. So do you have a preference yourself between working heel or baby?
I'm a super baby. Always have been. I've tried to work heel a few times and it did not work. I don't know if it was just the booking or the type of crowd, or if my gimmick just can't be a heel. Honestly, like I really don't. I really have only tried 3 times, and everywhere I go though, I'm a super baby anyways. So that's what the promoters and the bookers run with. Once they see my military gimmick and they know, they watch a couple of my matches or something, or see my promos, then they understand that, I don't know if I could get this guy to do heel. I mean, I've tried. It's not that I haven't tried. I've tried to do heel a couple times. It didn't work. And honestly, I really didn't feel comfortable being a heel, because, in order to get heat as a military veteran, it's kind of hard. And I kind of got to tiptoe across a gray line that I don't want to cross. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I do. Speed round. Charlotte Flair.
Charlotte, North Carolina, my hometown.
Absolutely. Nick Nemeth.
Great seller.
Drew McIntyre.
Was part of the 3-man band, but now is a beast.
Yes. He's one of those people that getting released from WWE was probably the best thing that ever happened to him. I mean, he went off, reinvented himself, and came back, like you said, as a beast.
Beast, like night and day between 3-man band Drew McIntyre and the one we see now. Like it's like he ate the old Drew.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt Riddle.
Stoner.
Yeah.
I mean, that's about all I can say with him, bro.
Yeah. Jacob Fatu.
Oh, MLW, because that's where I first saw him, was MLW. And that's where I first met him, actually, was at an MLW show. And, Jacob Fatu, I'm happy for him right now.
I am too, man. That guy, the sky is the limit. I mean, he is a future WrestleMania main eventer. I mean, without a doubt. Roderick Strong.
TNA. Yep. TNA. I remember he had some great matches in TNA.
Bobby Roode.
Beer Money, TNA again. Everyone's the glorious. I understand that, but Beer Money and his TNA heavyweight title run as a heel was pretty good too. When he changed from Robert Roode to Bobby Roode, or no, reverse that.
But when he went from Bobby to Robert, and almost became like the corporate champion. Kazuchika Okada.
Japan, New Japan, right? New Japan?
Yeah, New
Yeah,
Japan.
yeah. New Japan.
Yep. Let's see. Who else do I have here on the list? Moose.
Oh, TNA again. TNA
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of TNA. Man, talk about, you know, the little company that could.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you know, they named, well, it was after the Steven Seagal movie, but they named one of their events Hard to Kill.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, that company logically should not have survived, but they just always seem to manage to find a way to keep going.
They shouldn't have made it out of the asylum, but somehow they made it down to like Orlando, Florida, and all those tapings down there. Like you know, they came a long way from Nashville, from being in Nashville at the fairgrounds there to Orlando, Florida. You know, through the Hogan, Eric Bischoff era and all that.
Yeah. And now they're in this partnership with WWE.
Yeah,
you know,
and now they're.
I mean, they're in good shape now.
Yeah.
So do you have an all-time favorite match as a fan? A match that's like comfort food. You just find yourself, you know, gravitating back to it, and it never really gets old. Do you have
I got a couple. I got two matches actually. The first one is Austin HBK at WrestleMania 14. For some reason, that match will always be my comfort match. Like honestly, you know, because obviously it was the beginning of Austin's reign as champion. You know, and that time in wrestling was also a boomer as well. Like, you know, at the same time, you know, that WWF was really starting to put out a great product, and you know, they finally gave Stone Cold that push. But back then we didn't know that his neck injury was that bad because, you know, there was no dirt sheets, there was no internet, there was no WrestleZone.com, you know, to find out all the backstage stuff. Like, we didn't really know Stone Cold was that hurt. You know, we knew he busted his neck up pretty good, but, you know, he spent, you know, 8 months not wrestling, but he was on TV every Monday.
Yep.
You know, and, you know, for him to go into WrestleMania, everyone was hoping he'd win the belt. Obviously he did. You know, for me as a kid, you know, I was really happy with that because Austin was like one of the reasons why I fell back in love with wrestling initially, because I'd stopped there for a year or 2, 3 years, you know, between 95 and about 97, because I really wasn't enjoying wrestling. Not the WWF side anyways. I kind of cantered to WCW between like 95 and like 98. All right. And then I switched. You know, I still tape Nitro, but I'd watch Raw live.
Yeah.
But that Austin Shawn Michaels match at WrestleMania 14 will always be the number one. The second one will probably be The Undertaker versus Kane at WrestleMania 20 when he returns, because that storyline, you know, since from that Buried Alive match where Kane interfered and buried him alive, all the way until that following WrestleMania, that whole storyline of him like shaking the ring and making it rain and all that, it just blew me away.
Oh yeah. Yep. So piggybacking onto that, do you have an all-time favorite promo as a fan?
The Hard Times promo, the Dusty Rhodes Hard Times promo. There's also that promo is always good. And, you know, Dr. Tom really, you know, when I at his school, JPWA, he really, you know, promo class was really a big deal to him. And he would give us all these promos to watch. Jake the Snake Roberts, Dusty Rhodes, Ricky Steamboat. And, you know, he would tell us, you know, tell a story. You know, the best promos are the ones that have a story thrown in it, you know, somewhere. You know, they keep you invested. You know, it's not just, hey, I'm showing up Saturday night, I'm taking the belt off you, and that's it. But the Hard Times promo from Dusty Rhodes, it made you feel something. Like you felt something with that because, you know, he's the son of a plumber. He didn't come from a rich family. He busted his tail to get where he is. 99% of America's like that, so we could all relate.
Yeah. You know, there's a promo that I just absolutely love because of just how real and how genuine the emotion in it is the promo that Mick Foley did when he was in ECW a fan had held a sign up that said Kane Dewey, which was his son.
Mm-hmm.
And that really bothered him. And he did this very heartfelt promo, and you could just feel the guy's pain at the thought of somebody caning his little boy, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, promos like that, you know, that and like you said, the Hard Times promo, the ones that there is an element of reality and relatability are the best.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
that's what Dr. Tom preached at school. He was just like, you know, if you can reel them in with that story, you know, they're going to be there Saturday night watching you and watching the match, and they're going to see, hey, did Johnny really? Is Johnny going to do what he said he's going to do? Or, you know, like if you draw them in, it goes back to like, would you rather have your voice work on the mic or be a great in-ring worker? You know, it's that voice drawing them in. You know, if you can get your voice to draw them in, their butts are going to be in the seat Saturday night, so the ring work will come.
absolutely. And you know, I've been a fan, you know, varying levels of fandom at different points in my life, but I've been a fan since I was around 11, and I'm about to be 56. So, you know, when I first became a fan, I was a kid in Florida watching the old Florida Championship Wrestling with Gordon Soley doing the commentary and all of that. And the first feud I remember was Dusty Rhodes and Kevin Sullivan. And you know, I've said this before, but when you're 11 years old, Kevin Sullivan was a scary dude.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, you know, I've always had a soft spot for Dusty, just because, you know, he was my first baby face, you know.
Yeah.
And I guess being a kid growing up in the South, you know, I was very much a you know, a Georgia and Florida territories guy. And you know, I didn't really start watching WWF until I was in college, because, you know, when that whole, I guess they call it Black Saturday or whatever, where McMahon tried to make the takeover of the time slot on WTBS and put WWF programming in there.
Mm-hmm.
That just that gave me a bad feeling toward WWF that I didn't get over until I was in college. I mean, I wanted nothing to do with them.
We're kind of in the same boat, because I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, born and raised there. So when I first discovered wrestling, I was 8 years old. I was flipping through trying to find some cartoons on Saturday morning, early 90s. I think it was an episode of WCW Pro or something like that was on TV,
Yeah.
and that's how I found it. But my grandfather was a wrestler in the Mid-Atlantic territories in the 70s and 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And we always watched WCW at his house, because he always told me he really didn't care for WWF and the McMahons because they were putting his buddies out of a job.
Yep.
And, you know, they were buying up all the territories. They were taking all the time slots. It just wasn't a good thing for him. And that's part of the reason why he got out of the wrestling business, honestly, was the politicking behind backstage with that. And, you know, he was really, you know, hesitant on, you know, WWF and all that. And, you know, he told me how he felt. But, you know, I mean, like you said, in the South, you know, it was Florida Championship Wrestling, Georgia Championship Wrestling. You had Mid-Atlantic. Even when I was growing up, there was really no WWF programming. Like when I first started watching wrestling, this was before Raw. So the only things that were on TV for WWF programming was like on the weekends, I think. But WCW had like 4 shows. It was like they had like WCW Saturday Night. They had WCW Pro, WCW Worldwide. Yep. Like they had all this stuff, you know, in Charlotte, you know, and on local TV in Charlotte. So I really didn't watch WWF. You know, I'm kind of like in your boat until probably like 94, 95 when Raw first debuted.
Yeah, I remember watching it a little bit in college. This would have been right around 91 to 92. And I remember seeing a very young Undertaker. and being like, this guy's going to be something, you know. I mean, he hadn't really caught on yet. He was, you know, he would basically was just kind of debuting, and I'm like, this guy's got something, you know.
I had just started watching. I think it was right when I think King Mabel had broken his face.
Yeah.
And he was wearing the mask.
Yeah.
And it was somewhere around that time I had just started watching WWF more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because up until that point, I'd watched WCW a lot because that was on TV all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and if I happen to stay up and watch an episode of WWF Shotgun Saturday Night, you know, I might be able to see some of those main attraction stars. But most of the time, it was pay-per-views back then.
Yep.
You know, before Raw was even on TV, you really didn't see, you know, the Undertakers, the Bret Harts, or any of that unless if you bought the pay-per-view.
Yep. So, in your opinion, who are the best male and best female wrestlers in the world right now? One man and one woman. Who's the top right now?
In the world?
Yeah.
It's got to be the guy holding the WWE title right now. It's got to be Cody. I think it has to be. Like he's been on this crazy run since he came back since he jumped shit back, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, he's been on this run that I can't get over. I mean, I know Roman Reigns and the head of the table, the tribal chief, the bloodline, that was great. And it is great. And it's still going on now.
Oh yeah.
But I think the Cody story, you know, and it probably goes back to me being biased for the Rhodes family because my grandpa always talked good about Dusty Rhodes. Yeah. And, you know, Dusty's always been a great, you know, babyface wrestler of mine. He's one of my top 3 babyface wrestlers of all time. And, you know, to watch Cody go back to WWE from AEW and then just this journey that he's been on, you know, throughout the last 3-4 years, it's just been incredible for me to watch. And I've been invested with that. And you said female wrestlers. So as far as female wrestlers go, honestly, I really don't know who would be the best in the world right now. Probably Becky Lynch, I would say. I would say she'd probably be in the best of the world right now as well, female wrestler wise. You know, because they're holding the belts for a reason, you know, and if they're, you know, if they weren't the best, you know, they wouldn't be holding those belts. Somebody else would be. So I'm not picking them because they are holding the belts right now, but I'm picking them because right now they seem to be on top of their divisions, separate divisions.
Gotcha. So, and this can be present day or past. Who would be a dream opponent for you? Who would Johnny Faith love to have the opportunity to share a ring with?
Besides my grandpa, I mean, that'd be good because he was a bad guy. So I'd like to see a big baby face Johnny Faith versus Jimmy Faith. That would be pretty cool. But Steamboat, I'd like a good baby versus baby Steamboat with Steamboat. I think that I'd love a good baby versus baby with Ricky Steamboat. I'd probably get arm dragged to hell and back, but you know, I don't care. That will always be a dream of mine because Ricky's my number 1 baby face of all time. So for me, a baby versus baby match is always fun.
It is.
And I really like, you know, trying to find new and creative things to do in a baby versus baby match and not just the same old stuff.
Absolutely. So, I'm going to use a literary term here and ask, do you have a foil, meaning an arch rival, someone that you have amazing in-ring chemistry with to where you know if you're working that person, you're always going to have a banger? Do you have such a person in the wrestling business that you just know if you're working them, it's going to be magic?
Yeah, it goes back to Bubba Sutton. Me and him had 3 matches, and you know, they were all good matches. They really were. They all told the story that they needed to tell. That 3rd match was really good because I finally got over on him, and that story that we told for those 2 years leading up to that match out of the pandemic was just phenomenal. And to get that victory over Bubba, you know, it was great. And, you know, when we got back to the locker room, I just hugged him for a long time because, you know, that was my first victory. And that was my first victory in that company. You know, I spent a year and a half, 2 years losing. pretty much. And then the pandemic happened, and I was due for a push. Then the pandemic happened, and then we got right back into it after the pandemic. A year and a half later, but we kept that story going. So when that match came about, we put on like a 15-minute, back and forth storyteller. It was good. And, I think unfortunately he passed away, but I think if we had the opportunity to step into the ring a fourth time, it'd be a banger once again. And, there'd be no doubt in my mind that we both, would give it our all, and it would probably be better than the three before that.
So, what is your favorite move? What is something you just really enjoy doing? And on the flip side of that, is there a move that you won't do or you would at least rather not do, and that can be giving or receiving?
Favorite move to do probably is the belly to belly, Kid Shamrock style.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably my favorite thing to do to somebody, besides my finisher. But the belly to belly, I don't know. I've always loved that, a good belly to belly. I used to do it to my neighborhood friends all the time on the trampoline. So to actually get to do it in a wrestling match is pretty cool. As far as taking moves, I'm open to pretty much anything as long as it keeps us safe, keeps me safe and my opponent safe. We can talk about it. I'm open to anything, as long as it's safe and as long as it has a purpose and it goes with the story.
Gotcha. So, in the time that you've been doing this, what is the worst bump you have ever taken?
I took a suplex onto the concrete off the apron. I believe it was one of those things that I was supposed to hit the apron instead, but the guy kind of, I don't think he overshot me. It was more or less probably my fault on the post, I think, but instead of hitting the apron, I just missed the apron completely as I was going over, and I just wound up just taking that bump on the concrete.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah.
So, you've been doing this long enough that I'm sure this definitely applies to one degree or another. So I'll ask, what hurts right now?
What hurts right now?
Yeah.
Nothing hurts right now, honestly.
Well,
Like
good.
I don't have anything that hurts right now. Like, I'm blessed with decent health right now. So
Good.
I'm gonna keep that going.
Yeah.
Really nothing hurts. I mean, I got a little knee soreness here and there, but it's been like that since the Army. Same with lower back. That's been like
Right.
that since the Army. So it's nothing, it's not wrestling related or anything like that. But no, as far as what hurts, like, nah, I'm good to go. Like nothing. I'm good.
That's beautiful, man. So what is your take on the role that social media is playing as a promotional tool in wrestling, specifically indie wrestling?
I think it's a phenomenal tool. You got unlimited people at your fingertips, and you need to utilize that. And I am a firm believer on social media now. I really wasn't before, up until a couple years ago, probably after the pandemic, because I saw how many people were on social media during the pandemic, saw how much stuff blew up during the pandemic and all that, and social media became almost like a second lifeline for people during the pandemic. So to be able to promote, you have millions of people at your fingertips between X, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and there's probably a whole bunch of other social medias that I don't even know about. And you can reach so many people with not only wrestling, but just things from your life in general. Like, it doesn't even have to involve wrestling, but nowadays social media influences everything, every aspect of the world. Some little small thing happens, bam, it's posted on social media. Like nothing's quiet now. It's like I was saying before about, we didn't really know any backstage information or dirt sheets or whatever you call it. But nowadays it's plastered everywhere.
Yeah.
I can't open my Facebook browser right now without some kind of rumor or spoiler or something popping up.
Oh yeah. And it's kind of a double-edged sword. In some ways it's a great thing, but in other ways it makes the job of the booker and being able to truly pull off a surprise so difficult. I mean,
Hard.
the rare times that that they can manage to pull a complete surprise off that nobody sees coming is just, it's magical now, because it is such a difficult undertaking, because everybody's got a phone with a camera, or, I mean, it's so the internet really makes the bookers' jobs a lot more difficult.
Yep. And you want to talk about surprises? So when my dad passed a couple years back, I took about 5 months off from the company that I wrestled for out in Kansas, and we actually hid my surprise so well that when I came back during a Halloween show, and it was a War Games match between, this faction that had taken me out, 5 months prior, and Team XWE.
Mhm.
And there was a mystery partner. All right, and I'm written off with a leg injury. But I'm taking off TV, or I'm taking off the shows because my dad passed and I need to get my head together. So
Right.
we did an injury write off, and I dressed up in like this biohazard outfit,
Oh,
and
cool.
just while the match is going on, my stuff, I had like this custom music made and all that. I walked out with this biohazard suit on, and then my Johnny Faith music hit, and I took it off, and it was me, and it the whole place blew, like the roof blew off the freaking building in that place, and it was. I didn't realize how great we had kept that a surprise until I had watched that footage back and saw how big that pop was, because I was there all day. I was dressed in all black. I had a freaking whole black mask on. Like, no one knew I was there. No one knew I was there. I parked my car across the street because I have a Georgia plate
Hmm.
and a disabled veterans plate. So everyone knows, hey, we know Johnny's here if the Georgia plate is in Kansas. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's kind of a dead giveaway. I parked it down the block, a couple blocks, stay hidden backstage all show. Our match was the main event. I was coming out the last 5 minutes of the show, and I stayed hidden from other wrestlers. Like, other
Yeah.
wrestlers had no clue I was even there. Like, we did a huge swerve, and I don't think I could ever redo that. I don't know if I could ever try to redo that again.
Yeah. I mean, that's old fashioned kayfabe.
Yeah,
I mean,
like I don't know if I could ever try to do that again, because I put messages out there subliminally. Hey, have a great show. I'll be watching. My recon's in place. Blah blah blah. And then bam, day of the show. Last 5 minutes. Who's the mystery partner? Oh my god! Like, I never. That's probably the biggest pop I ever had in my career. Is that pop from that night?
well, that, that had to be an amazing feeling to absorb that crowd reaction at your return.
Yeah, because I just stood there and soaked it in for a second, but then I had to get in there because my guys were getting beat down.
Yeah.
So I couldn't really live in that moment. Now, once we won,
Yeah.
obviously I lived in that moment because it was only a few minutes later, that
Right.
turned the tides. But like that initial pop, I didn't realize how good it was until I watched it back.
Right.
And even my wife was just like, she had her camera, and it was shaking the thing.
Yeah. That is awesome. So, knowing everything that you know at this point in your life, if you could give any advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Listen and don't doubt yourself. Probably the big one would be, don't doubt yourself, because I'm a doubter. I mean, I got into the wrestling business really late. I didn't start wrestling really until I was in my mid 30s. So, it's hard to be, that mid 30s wrestler with an, 18-year-old, 19-year-old stud out there, so, the self-doubt obviously starts to chime in on my mental state sometimes. Not anymore though, but at the beginning of my career it did. And I guess even when I recovered from my heart attack last year and had a few matches last year as well with some younger guys, I was, I had a lot of self doubt. I really did, and that's part of the reason why I went to JPWA, was to refine that fire and relearn what I can, and try to learn better and get better. And because I lost a lot, I really did. I lost a lot, when I had that heart attack, and
Yeah.
it's not just muscle mass and stuff from my body physically, but mentally I lost a lot. Am I going to still be able to hang with these 19 and 20-year-old wrestlers, and all that, and still put on great matches and tell good stories, and for me, I just got to tell my younger self, ignore the self-doubt, like use that self-doubt as fuel and motivation to get better.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I know what you're talking about, because, when I started training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I was usually both the oldest and the smallest person in the class. and those are some serious disadvantages. I mean,
Yeah.
because I was in my late 30s to early 40s when I started training. And I'm a small guy. I'm around 5'5", and and we had some young muscle heads in the class,
Hmm.
and you know and especially at the level I was at, if I let those guys get on top of me, that was it. So I had to play a very smart, very mobile game with them, and sometimes even that wasn't enough. That they were
Yeah.
just big and strong. But you know, the first year, the first year that I trained, um, I basically spent a whole year tapping, and then finally, I still remember the first role that I actually submitted somebody, and I mean, it was just such an incredible feeling to finally see the training kind of clicking, you
Yeah.
know. And but yeah, so I know what you mean about starting something older and being in there with younger guys. It's tough.
It was, and it still is now, because like I go. Seems like the locker rooms are getting younger and younger, or maybe
Oh
I'm just
yeah.
getting older. I don't know.
So, do you have any pre-show traditions? Any things that you try to do consistently before you go through the curtain?
Yeah, so I have a lot of people like drink water and stuff for their matches and all that. I do that, but the match before me, that's when I cut it off. Because the whole bathroom thing, like I don't know, as soon as I change into my gear, it's like I got to go to the bathroom every 5 minutes. So somehow I got to cut that water intake off, because I get nervous and then I just start drinking water. But mostly what I do, like I said, I'm the quietest guy in the locker room. So honestly, what I do is I pace. Whether it's in the locker room or whether it's outside the venue, behind the scenes somewhere. I'm a pacer, and I just get in, just go into my own little world. I put my headphones in, listen to some music real quick. Try to get in that right space before I go out there. Trying to settle the nerves a little bit, I guess you could say. But yeah, like I'm very quiet. I'm a pacer. I just walk. That's all I do is just walk. Sometimes I'll sit. If there's nowhere to walk or anything like that, I'll just sit and reflect and just talk to myself, and give me a little pep talk. Try to calm the nerves a little bit, because like I said before those air raid sirens, go off, I'm super nervous. So
Oh yeah.
especially when I'm hearing my opponent walk into the ring or something like that, and I'm in the back and my music's about to hit, and I'm just like, oh, here we go. So usually I try to hype myself up and I try to talk myself down at the same time.
Yeah. So, just kind of a quick rundown. What all do you carry in your gear bag? And do you have anything unusual or unique that you carry in your gear?
So I got the gear, I got boots, referee outfit, security outfit. So I pretty much carry everything in there. It depends on what the shows need. If they needed a ref, I could throw on the stripes. If they need security, I'll throw on my all black, be security. So Tylenol, Band-Aids. I got a notepad for notes, just in case if I need to write down some critiques, or if somebody tells me some feedback that I know I'm not going to remember, I'll write it down. Got a bunch of bracelets, a bunch of wrestler bracelets that I've traded with. I trade bracelets with wrestlers everywhere I go, so I got a whole bag full of those. Other wrestler bracelets are in there. Socks, underwear, deodorant. I got a switchblade in there as well. I keep a switchblade
Nice.
in my gear bag as well, just in case, because you never know. And
Yeah.
it's like I told my wife, she's like, why you carry a knife in your bag? I was like, you just never know. And it has nothing to do with the wrestlers. I mean, some of these venues I go to sometimes are just not in the greatest parts of town.
Oh no.
And, sometimes you might have to talk to somebody going to your car, and you don't know whether that confrontation is going to be friendly or not. So, that's the reason for the old switchblade in the gear bag. That's probably one of the most obscure things that I carry. Other than that, it's really just wrestling stuff and medical stuff.
Got you. Something that we've done in all of these that's just been kind of fun is we let the current guest pose a question for the next guest. So a previous guest of mine posed this question, and that is, if you had any movie that you have seen that you could watch for the first time over again, what would it be?
If I had a movie I could see that I've already seen that I could watch over again for the
For
first time,
for the first time, and experience it again with fresh eyes.
it had to be probably the first Transformers movie, I think, because I was a Transformers kid. I was a Ninja Turtles kid, and I was a Ghostbusters kid. So when the live action Transformers came out, I was pretty happy with it. But then the movie came out, and I kind of was disappointed. I was kind of disappointed. I mean, I wasn't disappointed fully, but it was just amazing that something from my childhood like that, was actually on the big screen, especially Transformers, because I mean, it's a movie about robots and all that, and CGI back then wasn't really that good, and Ghostbusters had already been made, Ninja Turtles had already been made, but Transformers had never been made. And then when it came out, I saw it, I was so hype, and disappointed at the same time. But I would like to go back and relive that, because as a kid, seeing Optimus Prime on the screen, and not a cartoon, was actually pretty cool.
Oh yeah, for sure. So since this is part of a series, do you have a question that you would like to pose to the next guest?
Yes, I would like to ask, how old were you when you realized wrestling would be your livelihood?
That's a really good question. How would you answer that?
I'd say 8 years old, the first time I discovered wrestling. Because as soon as I saw, I'm pretty sure it was a Brad Armstrong wrestling match, was like one of the first matches I'd ever watched. It was Brad Armstrong versus, I think, Fit Finley or something like that, on an episode of like WCW Pro or WCW Worldwide or something like that. It was one of those studio tapings. Yeah. But I was just like, man, I really want to do that. Because then once I started watching wrestling, I saw the bigger wrestlers, like the Barbarian, Ming, and this was like before Hogan and all that, like, came to WCW. So like, I saw Sting, and this was Surfer Sting. This wasn't Crow Sting. So it was Surfer Sting. So I was like, oh man, that's cool. Vader, all those big guys. I
loved Vader.
I was like, man, I really want to do that stuff. And, as a kid, I had a trampoline. So guess what me and the friends did? We wrestled on the trampoline, So, I mean, 8 years old, that was where my livelihood started. Now, whether I achieved that dream or not, that was to be determined. But, 8-year-old Johnny, that's when I found out I wanted to be a wrestler, and I really wanted to try to do that.
Awesome. And, growing up, man, I loved Brad Armstrong as well. I'm definitely a Brad Armstrong mark, and I feel like he never really got the credit he deserved.
And he made
was phenomenal.
People look good. He made so many people look good. And I still to this day watch Brad Armstrong matches, and even Dr. Tom Pritchard swears by Brad Armstrong. I asked him for people to watch, like, who could I go study Dr. Tom, and he's like, Brad Armstrong. Like, and we would ask him questions like, who was one of your favorite opponents? Brad Armstrong. Why? Yeah. Because he was a great worker. He listened and he made you look good.
And he could adapt to any style.
and he could wrestle anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he
yeah.
wrestled all kinds of people for WCW in the early 90s to mid 90s. He really did.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, he's another one that's gone too soon.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, you know, and it's a shame when people that are that good never seem to really get their just desserts. I mean, you know,
it's like Dolph Ziggler pretty much. I mean, he got his
Yeah.
just due a little bit, but I feel like he should have gotten a lot more too.
Oh, for
You
sure.
know?
For sure. But you know, I will say I'm liking the work he's doing in TNA right now.
Yes.
I mean, I actually feel like he's doing some of the best work of his career right now.
Yeah, and his microphone work is pretty good too. Like, it's almost like he got the gloves. They took the gloves off. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, and I'm sure WWE was probably the ones keeping those gloves on, but you know, now he can do his full Nick Nemeth thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're pretty much at the end of things now. So do you have any upcoming shows or anything at all that you'd like to give some hype to?
So I got a couple things coming up. I got September 6th in Spring Hill, Florida. Veterans Pro Wrestling is doing a show at the VFW in Spring Hill, Florida. They are doing a show for military veterans and first responders. It's going to be a great show. There's some NWA stars going to be on that show. I think Brian Idol is defending the NWA television title on that show. The show has a lot of military veterans and first responders participating in the show as wrestlers, and they're doing a lot of charity work for veterans as well and military first responders on that show. So that's September 6th. Then I got a great opportunity coming up in October. I get to go to a Ricky Steamboat seminar.
Really?
Up in Tennessee at NWA Crossfire and in Sevierville, Tennessee. Ricky Steamboat's going to be there on October 3rd and October 4th at NWA Crossfire, and he's doing a 3-hour seminar on that Saturday, and I'll be heading up that way to check that out because Ricky Steamboat is the #1 babyface in my book for me, and I've been studying him since day one, and to actually finally go to one of his seminars, I am super excited for.
No doubt. I mean, and you know, soak that in, man. Being able to sit under the learning tree of Ricky Steamboat for a few hours is that's another worth its weight in gold type.
Yeah, definitely. Like it was, you know, and I didn't even care how much the seminar cost. I'm already there. I got to drive 8 hours up there, and you know what? I don't really care because I really want to go up there for that seminar and pick Ricky Steamboat's brain. One other event I forgot about. I got Air Capital Brawl 3 Heartland Championship Wrestling out in Wichita, Kansas on 20 September. So September 20th, I'll be back out in Kansas with my home promotion, Heartland Championship Wrestling. I'll be taking on my trainer. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes.
Very cool. So as far as what we've got coming up here on the Throwdown, actually tomorrow night, Wednesday the 27th at 7:45 p.m., we're actually doing an episode of the Wrestling Roundtable. My two buddies, Nick from Babyface Breaks and Miguel, who is actually a commentator for WWA 4 here in Atlanta and a few other promotions, and I are going to get together, basically just kind of nerd out about wrestling, talk about some of the latest news in wrestling, like the whole ongoing saga with Killer Cross, and this whole debacle going on with Raja Jackson, and pretty much anything else that kind of breaks between now and then. And then we're also going to go through the Clash in Paris card, at least as we know it so far, and kind of give our thoughts and predictions about that. So tomorrow night's just going to be kind of a fun night, just three guys nerding out about something we love. And then next Wednesday, the 3rd, at 7 p.m., I've actually got episode 150. I can't believe we've managed to do 150 of these.
Nice.
And I've got this wrestler from Las Vegas, Thad Maximus, who seems like he has a really interesting persona, and I'm definitely excited to have him on and he seems to have an interesting energy. So I'm definitely intrigued to have him on and see how that goes. And then next Thursday, the 4th, at 7 p.m., I've got episode 151, and I've got an Orlando, Florida-based tag team, Kid Kuda and Reese Maddox. They are really tearing up the indies in Florida, and they're starting to expand outward to other parts of the country. These two guys are really young and really athletic, and they are a lot of fun to watch. So I'm really excited about having them on. And I've got a bunch more stuff scheduled. So y'all definitely keep an eye on my socials, because I announce things usually about a week in advance, and I'm actually booked until the second week of October. So I'm booked about 6 weeks out at this point, and I'm definitely having the time of my life doing these, and I meeting some of the coolest people, and you're high on that list, Johnny. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it definitely has.
And for those of you that have been watching this live, thank you. For those of you that'll be seeing this on replays and clips on the web, thank you for that. If you like what we've got going here, I've got a link tree on my bio on Instagram that has all of my various socials. So if you want to do the old like, comment, share, and subscribe, I'd be much obliged. And pretty much until tomorrow night, when I'm getting together with Nick and Miguel to shoot the bull, be good to each other, love each other,